In our lifetime, I think this is the most significant land use change we're ever going to see. The multiplex space essentially automatically rezoned all single-family homes in our province to allow for 4 to 6 units per lot. What kills projects nowadays is timeline. Timelines are 4 months for permits versus 2 years for permits. The single most significant challenge developers have had is carrying costs.
The variance of quality from one building here to the one across the street that are done by 2 different developers is crazy.
Builders oftentimes have pre-sold product and try to find ways to save money. How will the consumer be protected against developers promising X and delivering Y?
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back to the Tom Storey Show. I appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, make sure to get subscribed to the YouTube channel. Or Steve, where other places can people subscribe? Is Spotify still a thing for us? That's working well?
Yes, Spotify's crushing it, and they're actually doing probably a little bit better than YouTube right now. Well, they're not doing more views, but more dedicated followers. So go to Spotify, and we are not monetized on Spotify, by the way. So we need people to listen more often. So go listen there.
Go listen on Spotify. Listen twice this week. Once on YouTube, once on Spotify.
Just let it play in the background.
This week's guest is an overall great guy, a really damn good real estate agent. Adil Dinani has joined the show. Adil, I feel like I met you maybe, 2019, 2020 for the first time. Adil runs one of the top real estate teams in Canada for Royal LePage. That's how we met, through that network. And I'm disappointed you're not going to be on the flight with me tonight. So I'm going to miss you on this trip. But I'm excited to have you here. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Steve. Pleasure. Yeah, I think it was 2019 Sparkling Hill where I connected with you first at the first Chairman's Club retreat. So
yeah, that was the pandemic year, stay in Canada only travel destination. But that was awesome. Yeah. I played Predator Ridge, which anyone that's a golfer will know what that is. I golf twice a year, and I probably didn't deserve to be out there, but I certainly enjoyed myself. Adil, for the viewers that maybe haven't seen your signs around Vancouver or know who you are, can you give me a bit of a background on years in the industry, market that you serve, and things like that?
Sure. 20 years this year in the business, so big milestone. First 5 years, I was still finishing off school, so I did my degree in economics at Simon Fraser, SFU, and started selling full time. I've been selling full time for about 15 years now, so it's been a great journey. I've got a team of 6, 2 support staff, and 4 licensees, including myself, and we do a wide array of business, from anything from a typical residential resale to land acquisition, helping clients through the advisory process of bringing on these smaller scale projects for 8 and 12 units. So it's been a lot of fun. I consider ourselves a hybrid team, so we can professionally handle your typical resale client, moving up and down in the market. And then we can deal with more sophisticated folks as well. They're looking to invest or enter the development space. So keeps things interesting for sure.
And with all the new rezoning with our pal Ravi, who's been on the show a few times, that has been positive, I guess, in your business in terms of the opportunities it's created in, what is, let's call it what it is, a slow market right now. That people are now focusing on that. And I know you're very involved in that.
So in our lifetime, I think in British Columbia, this is the most significant land use change we're ever going to see again. I mean, politicians in British Columbia have been criticized for so long on hitting the demand side of the equation, right? All these demand side measures that haven't really hit the supply constrained environment we've been in for so long. This is the first policy in 2 decades where you have more product coming to market. So the multiplex space essentially automatically rezoned all single family homes in our province to allow for 4 to 6 units per lot. These are stratified homes, which can be resold, can be rented, a lot of flexibility for the developer. And so this is a prolific change and a structural change in the land use of all single family homes. Historically, you would have to assemble 3-4 properties to get a townhouse development or a large acreage. But now this this opportunity provides homeowners, more smaller scale developers to approach single lot opportunities, and hit those neighborhoods that are missing that middle gentle density. That's
So
so
is this
important.
the missing middle that we've talked about forever? Is this truly it? And actually, Adil, just center yourself in the photo. I don't
Sure.
want the people on YouTube to have to only look at half your face and full faces of me and Steve. There we go. But is this truly now like we've had Ravi on the show twice. Steve is, I think, what, 75% negative, 25% positive on Ravi's changes. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's go there.
Adil, whatever you do, don't put one of these homes on Steve's street, because if he finds out there's more cars parked outside, he's just gonna lose his mind. But but to get back to the question, we've been talking about missing middle housing forever. Is this it? And is it still too early to know if buyers really want this, because we're just in the early stages of kind of bringing these projects to the market?
Yeah, I think a lot of there's not a lot of proof of concept. Vancouver adopted a multiplex policy 18 months ago. So we have some product now coming to market to better understand the absorption, what buyers are thinking and feeling about this housing type. The first city where we actually have our brokerage was in Coquitlam in 2019. The city of Coquitlam adopted the province's first multiplex program well in advance of all these provincial initiatives. And we saw a lot of success in that program. We were involved at the forefront, helping developers get positioned, understanding the land use changes in terms of how it would impact market values for homeowners, what that new quote unquote value would be with the more density. And you know what, Tom, there's been a really good absorption and good response. The big thing now is that policy in Coquitlam's now expanded to so many more municipalities. And most importantly, what kills projects nowadays is timeline, uncertainty, and predictability around the municipal process. And now with the programs in Vancouver and in Burnaby, I would say those are the two cities that we're focusing more of our attention on, because timelines are 4 months for permits versus 2 years for permits in Coquitlam, right?
Wow. So it's really 4x sped up the timelines to get these things going.
Yeah. Like the single most significant challenge developers have had is carrying costs, because they're borrowing at commercial lending rates, typically prime +2, right? And when you're sitting at stuck at the city for 2 or 3 years, a lot of that performer, that potential profit in that project gets eroded when you're waiting that long. And so now with Burnaby, like Mayor Hurley, we have an event, actually a multiplex event later today that I'm speaking at, and that Mayor Hurley is going to be at. Ravi Kalun's going to be speaking at it as well. And his mandate was to reduce the permitting or entitlement process by 50%. And he's done it, right? He's dropped. So there's two stages in approval. The one is the development permit, which approves the form and character of the building. And then there's the building permit process. Burnaby has gone straight to building permit, saves 1.5 years. And now staff can approve projects, which is pretty exciting.
So that means that Steve can't go to the community meeting and be old man yelling in the corner. But I know I'm joking about it, but that kind of just takes away that whole 1.5 year rigmarole of not in my backyard. Is that kind of what that does? Yeah. And obviously for us in our conversation and building new supply, this is a wonderful thing. Is there any now pushback from the neighborhood saying, hey, we didn't even get a chance to voice our opinions on this?
Yeah. So some cities have pushed back, and they're saying, and Steve probably aware of this in the Valley, Langley's making it really difficult. The more upscale neighborhoods like the North Shore and West Vancouver are saying, well, it's not a one-size-fits-all program, Ravi. Like, we need to look at the needs of our communities and develop a program that fits accordingly, which is a reasonable, request, right? The problem is there's a lot of these cities are just looking for ways not to do it and looking for ways not to bring on more affordability. The average house price, in West Ban is north of $3 million, right? But there's folks who grew up in West Ban who can't live in that community anymore and forced out because there is no options between $1.5 and $2 million, which was, would be deemed more affordable in those neighborhoods, right?
Yeah, I guess more affordable all depends on what the average price. More affordable in some neighborhoods is $500,000, but in West Van it's under two. So walk me through. I understand you're looking at these certain lots that meet the criteria to put the 4 to 6 units on them, and it's 6 is what you're building on everything right now. That's I'm guessing you're putting the maximum amount of units, 6.
So the criteria for 6, Tom, is if you're within 400 meters of a frequent transit network, which is a bus stop that runs every 15 minutes. And so there are some arterial roads in Burnaby and Coquitlam, Cormudi that will fall under that 6-unit requirement. Ideally, buyers are looking for those 6-unit lots because you get the additional density. Yeah.
And then they buy it. They're tearing down the house that is there, leaving a wall. I don't know how it works in your market. In Toronto, they usually leave like the one wall. And what are they building? Like, what as an end user in, I don't know, I guess it's pretty quick these days, in a year from now, am I buying? What am I getting? Is it a real livable space? It is another little tiny condo that I could have just bought in the sky? Like, what's the end goal here, and what are people actually moving into?
I believe that this program's going to work. And I think in 2 ways. So I'll get to your question, but I'll give you some context before I answer the question. The city of Burnaby, this program's 5 months young, right? City of Burnaby took 12 single-family zones and consolidated them into one zone. It's called the SMOO, the Small-Scale Multi-Unit Housing Zone, the R1. And everything's outlined. How many units you can get. You can go on the city map. It's a GIS map. You type in your home address or the property you're interested in. It'll automatically tell you how many units it qualifies for. And it removes some of the guessing out of the equation. So the city of Burnaby now has 200 applications for this type of housing. So let's say the average application is going to be for homes. That's 800 units coming to market in the next 18 to 24 months, maybe 36 months. Vancouver has over 400 applications for this form of development, and times that by another 4. So what it's going to do, I believe there's going to be price compression for this segment. One, you're going to get a wide array of product type because lot sizes vary, unit sizes are going to vary, price points will vary. But at any given point, there's going to be a lot more of this inventory on the market. And so it's naturally going to push prices lower. I think what the NDP government is trying to do with this particular initiative, I think it's going to work. And 18 months from now, that buyer in that $1 to $2 million price bracket that doesn't want to live in the sky and wants a front door and a backyard will have a lot of options. And now with the federal government promising or potentially campaigning on removing the GST for homes up to $1 million, the Conservatives are saying up to 1.3 million. For all home buyers, not just for that could really positively impact that space.
So if I'm listening to this as someone that lives in and around both of your markets, and I'm hearing, what we're celebrating now, I'm just trying to take a different side to this to talk me through this, right? If I'm a buyer and my budget's, I don't know, $750, right? It's like, if I hear all this new stuff is great and it will potentially bring down home prices that were $3 million, and there's gonna be more options between $1 million and $2 million. I'm like, well, I don't care. Right. So walk me through. Could it put pressure on every pricing bracket because you're bringing more to a certain segment of the market, or is there a model where you can deliver these things where they're well under sub $1 million in good neighborhoods? Is that possible?
I think under $1 million is going to be really difficult.
Okay.
There's an industry lobbyist group, and they put out an article a few months back. You guys might have seen it. Bo Jarvis talked about how 30%, CMHC actually released this, 30% of the cost of delivering a home is attributed to some form of municipal, federal, city fees. And so I don't think we can deliver this any cheaper, to be honest. Now, I think where the opportunity is right now is there's a bit of an arbitrage for investors and developers who are acquiring these properties early. You get that first mover advantage. I think land values will rise, unfortunately, for that the actual land acquisition, because people understand the concept, and if it gets proven out and it works, you're going to see the margins start compressing.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to be more difficult to find suitable acquisitions for our clients and for some other developers that are working in the market. I think that sub 1 million bracket is going to be reserved for the condo segment. I think that will be the affordable sub 1 million price bracket. And then I think if you want to graduate to ground-oriented living, like a townhouse or a multiplex, those units will probably start in the low ones.
So
And-
if you're going to have, let's think through this here. So you're going to have units that are constructed that you think will actually come down in value over time. And then you're going to have land that you think is going to go up in value as a result of being able to build more on those same lots. And then you think the compression is probably not going to happen in land development. So it's going to happen in developer profit. How much profit is there right now compared to how much more can be lost? Because otherwise the builders just won't build.
Right. Yeah. Great question, Steve. So the way we're working our performance for our clients, we're helping developers and we're helping homeowners. Homeowners don't fully understand like the new value of their property. So we've actually gone in and started educating homeowners, putting together neighborhood seminars. I did a webinar last week for homeowners. My presentation today at the Builders Showcase is actually focused on homeowners. So we've kind of coined a bundling system. So what we're doing is we're going in on these homes, and because we kind of speak the developer language, we can go in and now help the homeowner understand the highest and best use. So what we're doing, simply put, we're putting together 4 criteria and 4 pieces of information in our marketing package. One is we're commissioning site plans. This zoning is so new, sometimes developers are shying away from the projects because they don't know what can be achieved. So we put together a site plan, we put together unit layouts, we put together site massing, how big are these units, how tall are these buildings, and then we put a high-level performance together, then a marketing package. So our theory is when you start answering unanswered questions for the developer, they will pay a premium if it's bundled and packaged to them and say, hey, you can go build this, go take it and now run with the project. And the margins are X. Obviously, run your own numbers. I'm representing the seller, the homeowner here. The builder can go and do their due diligence. And so we've been able to get homeowners in the last 4 transactions we've done, probably 7 to 10% more than market value, because we've been able to showcase, what the finished product would look like.
And then we had Dan Wertel on the show, who I know you guys actually spoke after we recorded that episode, and I was asking him something similar. So there's if I'm a homeowner and I have the lot that meets the criteria and you guys have educated me, I know I can sell it for a bit more than if I just didn't know this and sold it to an end user.
Right.
Dan was saying something about but if I'm this homeowner, I can actually partner with a developer and say so walk me through that, because there's another option for people as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's called either co-developing or a homeowner participation program. So these are my thoughts about why this is going to become a really important part of the industry going forward. Is, if you look at our typical investment products, or what we look at as investors, right? You have some extra money. Where are you putting your money? You're putting your money into stocks. Maybe you're investing in the S&P 500, or you're buying a bundle of stocks and you're getting, 7 or 10% return per year. Historically, the pre-sale market has been a great way for mom and pop investors to get their foot in the door and get that 1-bedroom condo. And we all know how much capital has been decimated, unfortunately, in that segment. It's in the last 5 years, it's been, I think, the biggest underperformer for any asset class in real estate. And that might improve, but I think some of these frothy price points and speculative premiums that those investors paid, they may never get back to even, right? Unfortunately. And then lastly, the third investment asset people looked at was cash flow properties. See, right in the valley, you could, or in Abbotsford or in Chilliwack, you could still buy, a single family home, and maybe just be slightly cash flow negative, right? But now there's so many punitive legislative policies that are preventing mom and pop investors to say, hey, I'm not doing this. I don't have no control over the tenant. I can't short-term rental this thing anymore. There's too many risks. I'm out. And so now where do they put their capital? Okay. So I think we're going to see a big birth in the next 2 to 3 years of funds, smaller funds, not these big REITs, but these smaller funds that open up in local markets that are run by local developer.
This episode is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Real estate agents, listen up. Realty Ninja has created over 9,000 Canadian real estate websites, and they are no joke. I've been using Realty Ninja in my business since they were a small little startup in North Vancouver. Tiny, dusty little office with old leather couch and all. But look at the ninjas now. Realty Ninja is the go-to platform for real estate agents in Canada. Websites are no longer a nice to have. They are a must. Your clients expect you to feature their listings in the best light possible. They expect you to go with Realty Ninja. The backbone of my real estate business is my website. I wouldn't pick any other company to host my website other than Realty Ninja. Don't believe me? Go to my website. Check it out right now. Go to krproperties.ca and you will see that it's powered by Realty Ninja and has been for over a decade. They have all of the features I need to grow my business year after year, including lead capture, mobile-friendly design, built-in SEO, and so much more. The best part of Realty Ninja is it's totally free to sign up, no credit card is required, and you only pay when you are ready to launch your new Realty Ninja website. And no, that's not it. Sign up today at realtyninja.com/Tom, and you will receive 20%, yes, 20% off of your entire first year when using Realty Ninja to host your real estate website. Their templates are super easy to work with yourself, or you can have the ninjas design something for you like I did. Not only is Realty Ninja the best product on the market, but it's also affordable. Listeners of this show know that I am as cheap as they come, and I've been using Realty Ninja for well over a decade now. Start your free trial today, and when you launch, save 20% using our link in the description below. And let Realty Ninja help you take your real estate business to the next level. And now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, so I think this will be the birth of like the local developer fund who's saying, look, we're not going after the big 4, 6 and high-rise story projects. We're focused on changing the fabric of our neighborhoods, the 4, 6 unit projects. And I think that there's going to be an awesome opportunity. So now, Tom, back to your question about how homeowners can benefit is 2 ways. One, you can partner with a developer in their area. And what that partnership looks like is either like a co-partnership where you're taking on more of an active role. We think that most of these homeowners won't want to go the active role. They're probably going to take more of a passive approach. So what they'll do is they'll enter into a homeowner participation agreement with the homeowner. And they will say, okay, let's say John the builder makes them an offer to buy their home. And in conjunction with that sale agreement or contract to purchase and sale, they'll enter into a GPLP structure where John the builder will say, hey, I'll build this out. You will reinvest some of your equity from the sale back into the project. And we will give you an anticipated return. There's funds out there with anticipated returns of between 15 and 25% annualized, which are outperforming the S&P 500 over the last 10 years and outperforming any real estate asset class that we've seen over the last 5 years.
So with this, if you're looking at building these through funds, this type of product, 4 or 6 plexes, what does the actual product look like? And I don't give me it depends on the site. I don't want that. I want to try and understand, like, what are the people going to be living in? Are these basically 4 plexes, or do they feel like a townhouse? Are they 2 bedrooms? Because I think we don't need more 2-bedroom townhouses. We probably need 3 bedrooms so you can put a family in it. What does the actual end product look like?
So what we're trying to do with the clients we're advising is saying we want minimum 20 feet wide units. So these are like livable spaces. Okay. And we're encouraging our clients to only do 3-bedroom homes. Because I think when you offer a 2-bedroom option, you have way too much competition in the condo market that will offer views, that will offer amenities, that will offer more communal spaces that I think you can't get necessarily in a multiplex. So for being early adopters, we want to play it safe as best as possible. So these are very livable spaces, Steve. Townhouse style development pretty much is what you're going to see on the more typical lots. On the bigger lots, you're going to see, 2,300 square foot homes, 4 bedrooms, even backyards, rooftop decks on some of these sites. I believe in this space so much that I put a lot of my own capital to work as well over the last 6 to 8 months. The program's still pretty new, but I believe that these projects are going to work really well. And the interesting thing in Burnaby specifically is the multiplex space. The lots actually have a multiplier effect, and I'll explain what that means. Any lot with 66 frontage can be subdivided through a subdivision process. And now that newly created lot on its own will qualify for 4 to 6 homes. So now you've got 8 to 12 units versus 4 to 6, if that makes sense, on a newly created lot, right? And then what you do is you do a central driveway between the 2 lots, and then you have access for parking. It's called a central drive aisle. So we're essentially doubling the density from an already enhanced density that the cities are offering. So Burnaby has actually adopted all the provincial recommendations from subdivisions to reduce setbacks to increased building heights. And it's providing a very advantageous opportunity, I think, that a lot of investors and builders are focusing on. Today, we're actually doing an event with Mayor Hurley of Burnaby, who's going to be talking more about what he envisions for the program and the cities, like how the neighborhoods will change as these projects come to completion.
Okay, so previously, did Burnaby have setbacks similar to most cities where it's 25 front, 25 back, 3 each side? So
Yeah,
what are they going to now?
So Burnaby's setback, so let's say you were sandwiched between 2 lots. Your front setback would be the average of your neighbors' homes. So sometimes it was off, but it's about 20 to 25 feet. Okay. Now that's been reduced to 10 feet. So you're pushing the you have the opportunity to push the building 15 feet closer to the city boulevard. What that does, it creates bigger backyards, more optionality in terms of how much you can build in depth. Your buildings can get a bit longer. Also, side setbacks have been reduced as well by 2 feet per side. So you have a lot more building flexibility, and you can build up to 4 stories, which is an interesting form of development. That's like a mini 4-story building on your street. That 4-story construction triggers a higher building code and costs more to do. So we don't think a lot of builders will take that on unless the project's much larger. But I think you're going to see 30-story structures, all above grade, and perhaps basements being something of the past.
It seems like right now for Metro Vancouver, you guys are getting some of the purpose-built stuff that's coming to the market, just like we are in Toronto. And then I'm hearing lots of talk about exactly what we've talked about so far on this podcast that you're really involved in. Now, we all know that the big condos are not really launching or selling, and that could take some time. So I guess a few questions on this one. When the pre-con market for condos comes back, I don't know when that will be, but if you look at deliveries, it could be 27, 28 that people get interested again. Plus we've got that, plus we've got the purpose-built rentals. I'm not going to stand here and say that we've solved the housing crisis and we're going to have now a way oversupply and all prices are going to drop. But, it sounds like we're in a much better scenario, at least in your market, than what we've been doing. You look back at price growth, me and Steve have talked about, it's like 6.5% over the last 40 years averaging.
Right.
So I guess my question is, are big developers coming to the small stuff because there's nothing else to do right now? Are they coming to these meetings and talking to you, or is this more like smaller scale developers?
So right now it's smaller scale developers, because the medium guys need scale, and you can't necessarily get that right now. But there are my guess is if this works and you can actually get a permit to build 6 homes in 4 months, you're going to start seeing these medium scale builders saying, why am I waiting 3 or 4 years for a townhouse permit to do 22 units? I'm going to go buy 4 of these properties and be in the ground in 4 months, right? Because there's so much destruction of capital through the waiting period and the entitlement process. And that's what's killing most performers is unpredictable timelines with the city. So it could be interesting.
And right now, for the ones that you guys are involved in, are you pre-selling these units to purchasers now as if the way we used to buy it's a floor plan and you pick your finishes? Or are you guys finishing to completion, launching it, you have an actual product they can walk into? What's the process like?
So I don't think most of these smaller scale builders, and we're having this conversation, it's an evolving conversation about how we're going to potentially take some of the risk off the table,
right,
and try to pre-sell some of these homes. But oftentimes these smaller scale builders, they're just graduating from building a single family home or doing a subdivision, and they don't necessarily have the tools or resources to set up a vignette or a presentation center.
right.
The cost associated with that can be quite high. And so they're taking their projects. My recommendation is to at least a stage where we can tour people through what a potential product could look like. Maybe the framing stage, more advanced would be the drywall stage where you can actually feel the interior spaces in terms of how they'll be finished. So pre-selling, I think, will be a bit challenging. Unless the developer has 4, 5, 6 of these projects on the go, they can invest more into building out a presentation center or some sort of vignette that will help us, bring buyers through and make them more comfortable. But I also think that the industry on these smaller scale projects needs to establish a really positive reputation. I mean, it's easy to buy up from a PC or presentation center when you're buying from a Boza or a Tridel. But when you have an, builder ABC down the street, like
Right.
there's some questions, right? Like, what's your track record? How am I guaranteed I'm going to get what you're telling me I'm going to get?
It's the early days of, when homes were built in Toronto. I'm sure it's the same in your market. There's some homes that are labeled like built by this developer. And it's like, that is a stamp of approval. And in the condo markets, it's kind of easy to know, like, here's the good developers versus the ones that, some is good, some is not great. It's going to be now interesting in your market to see, like, who put the money. Is it going to be like a Dinani project that your name's stamped on it? Like, is it, you think it's just going to be like I don't know how many people would actually do it, but a small group of people in this world that are building all of it versus, smaller one-off, this is my first build other than building my custom house?
There's going to be a lot of players in the market.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be messy.
So I guess that's the risk for buyers too, right? You don't know quite what you're getting.
Yeah.
Everyone's so different, right?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. When the city of Vancouver introduced the duplex zoning for all their RS lots, which is 70% of the single-family detached housing stock there, they allowed for duplexes about 5 years ago. You had builders from the valley because, all of a sudden you get more density. They were all flocking to the Surrey builders, the Abbey builders, the Tri-City builders, and Burnaby. Everyone was focusing on Vancouver because we can build duplexes and it's an understandable timeline. Mm-hmm. What happened is we had a massive overbuild of product. And, at any given time, you had 200 units to choose from. But what was interesting is buyers were high grading their options. Those guys, the developers who branded themselves, who had a bit of a track record, 90% of this product was sitting, only 10% was moving, right? And so buyers were going in and high grading their options. I kind of equate it to, I know when you were a kid, you get the trail mix and you're always looking for like the chocolate or like this, instead of the almonds, they're looking for the best options. And just like in this market, everyone's has more time. They're going to opt for the A product. And so same thing's going to happen in this multiplex space is that those who do well, those who execute and now develop a bit of a track record will be the ones that attract the buyers or at least give buyers the comfort, and they'll also get a premium.
And the current group of buyers, so like changing the zoning was step one. The developers recognizing and this potential sellers understanding that there's an opportunity here. There's a few different ways they can do it, right? They can partnership, or they can just sell for a bit of a premium if they know exactly which buyer to look for. And I'm sure this has been done, but like, are buyers putting up their hands? Oh, Steve left. Are buyers putting up their hands and saying like, I want this, I'm ready for this? Like, I'm sure there's been polls done and we're asking buyers like, what do they actually want as well, right?
That's a new one for me.
Oh, it was better without you here. Get out of here.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Welcome back, Steve.
Sorry. So the question was like, are buyers showing up to these seminars you're doing, and are they saying like, hey, I can't afford in this neighborhood. This is great for me. I'm interested in it. Like, are you getting that feedback? That it must be happening on some level to, that this much capital is going into it, right?
Yeah. You know what's really cool? I think the segment that's really surprised us is the inquiries we're getting, because we're doing feasibility studies for just for people in the community who want to understand, like, what can I do here? I got a call last week from a homeowner who's lived in south part of Burnaby for 30 years. His entire family was, his kids were all raised in this house. It's a big property, and he wants to build 4 detached units on that property where he, all 3 of his kids could live alongside him and his wife. So all, even multi-generational living, your kids can reside with you. It's providing a lot of those options for people who never had that opportunity before. Steve, there was an example in Delta. It was all over the news a month or two ago where I think it was kids, with their, had built something for their grandparents, and, the siblings were all living together. That's a pretty cool concept. If you want to live that close to your family, I think that you have some nice options that you never had before. And I think in terms of Tom, are buyers lining up? No, I think they still want to see what this product's going to be like, and how livable is it going to be. In concept, it sounds like it's going to work. So it's now in practice and seeing the finished product. I think in the next 12 months, I'll be able to answer that question better.
I think they are small enough projects, though, where they're all, I guess the bright side is they're going to lend themselves to end users, because they're small enough projects where you don't need massive financing. The builders are going to be able to build out a 4-plex or a 6-plex and then have it framed, like you say, drywall in. You may even have a show suite that's ready to move into, and here's the other ones. Let's go, you stage 1, the other 3 or 5 are empty, and you're going to end up with an end user. That is the bright spot. I think it's going to be livable homes, which I'm all up to. I know you're trying to be positive about parking. I think that's going to be an absolute disaster. But at the same time, I think the idea that comes along with so many players and so many builders will be a big challenge. I think it's going to be a substantial challenge. And the reason for that is I have had clients that have bought in, in Vancouver, they've done the thing where they assemble 3 or 4 or 5 lots, and then they build, I guess, kind of apartment building, kind of townhouse kind of stuff. And it's the variance of quality from one building here to the one across the street that are done by 2 different developers is crazy. And if you buy these things on pre-sale, that can be a trouble.
Yeah. I think the industry has a bit of a reputation. So I think that's really important that going forward, how do I put this is, I think builders oftentimes have pre-sold product and try to find ways to save money when delivering that product, right? And that's unfortunate because the consumer doesn't get what they were promised. And I think that's the biggest issue in the segment is how do we mitigate that going forward, and how do we create a certain level of, I had a call with a very big marketing agency that usually just does high rises. And they're like, we want to create a program for multiplexes, but we need lots of multiplexes to be part of this platform. And they're like, what are some of the challenges you see in the space? And I said, the biggest thing is how will the consumer be protected against developers promising X and delivering Y, right? I think that's the biggest thing, because everyone is trying to value engineer their projects in today's market. How do we save a few bucks, right? Especially in the face of potentially rising costs with tariffs. A lot of these performers that we're doing are being stress tested, and cost of construction can go up 5 or 10% with these new tariffs. So there is going to be a wide array of quality, Steve. Similar to my Vancouver example, people are going to probably want to wait till it's finished to develop it. That's why I'm a little cautious about pre-selling.
Don't you think maybe that could be a good thing, though? Because this is the guinea pig stage, right? Where the people that are building it want to do a really damn good job because they want them to sell when they're complete. versus the craziness of people just lining up buying the new construction condos where, like you said, the developer's like, well, you already sold 100% of the building. Now let's look at our costs and see where we can slash it because we've already got the funding.
Tom, let me let you in on what Adil really said just a little bit ago.
Okay.
He used the term valley builders. Okay? That is nice in-town talk for the crappy guys that are coming from the other side of the river are going to come build their other side of the river crap in our good neighborhoods. That's what he meant to say, but he didn't because he's much more diplomatic than I am. Listen, this has happened for a long time. There was a bunch of guys from, Surrey builders, let's call them, and they were looking at properties that, they built a bunch here, they were successful, and then they went and built in West Van. Nobody's buying those houses in West Van. Because if it back then in the day when it cost you, 175 a foot here in Surrey, you were still at that point building 350 or 400 a foot. These are detached homes in West Van. So you had these guys thinking that I build houses. I can go build houses there. It's a different thing. And I think that's where the victimhood will lie here shortly. Because I actually don't feel like there's going to be that many big builders that will dabble in this space because there's just too many little, maybe I'll do 4 units here, it's not really worth their time. So they're going to continue probably with the high rises and the stuff that really makes a lot of sense, maybe the large townhouse developments. But the potential for low quality product, I think, is going to be a real concern.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, that's just something that we'll see play out, right? Like at this point, we don't even know what these things are.
Do you need insurance? The answer to that question is obviously yes, of course you do. Whether you are a tenant, landlord, or homeowner, you need to insure your property and belongings. And when I insure my investment property, personally, I choose Square One. Square One is affordable online insurance for everyone. If you apply for your Square One insurance policy using the link in the description of the show notes, listeners of the Tom Storey Show can receive $20 off right now, simply by going to squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show. Square One is no joke. I personally use Square One for my landlord policy on my investment condo. I picked Square One because they were easier to work with than other insurance companies. And when I had an issue with my previous policy coverage in relation to my Stratas coverage, Square One was the insurance company that came up with a solution for my insurance problem at an affordable rate. Online quotes take less than 5 minutes with Square One. Get your home insurance quote today at squareone.ca/the Tom Storey Show and save $20.
I don't know. Adil, how would you agree with what Steve's saying?
So there's different pools of trade quality, right? You've got A, B, and C in any industry, right? You've got, if you're trying to build super cheap, like Steve said, or under $250 a square foot, you're gonna be pulling from a different trade category. I think now consumers are expecting a higher quality product, and there's no way you can get away with building like it. And this is a problem across all price brackets and all asset classes. Like there's the Vancouver house, for example. I was showing apartments in there when the project was done, and what was promised. This is a massive developer, melamine closets, and the building's closed, and you see renovation companies outside because people aren't happy with the finished product, and they're like tearing out their kitchens and redoing closets and cabinets. And so I think we need to figure out a way to protect the consumer. I want to advocate for that in this pre-sale space. That's why I'm also very careful with who we align our brand with. In terms of the multiplex space, because it could impact our reputation. And so we're thinking as a team and how we can create certain mechanisms and standards for our development partners in terms of communicating a story, but also delivering on that story to clients. But Steve, there's going to be those builders. Now, one thing I will say is, like, we've got builders from Surrey that are awesome, right? But there's some that are just set in their ways, that don't want to adapt to changing time. But the new generation of builders, kind of our age, they're 35 to 45, and they're like, we want to do it better. We want to figure out a way to deliver a great product. They're all building great brands and they're all delivering on good product. And so I think more of that is what the industry needs. And I think we're moving there because I think the standard level of finish, Steve, and you probably agree, has moved up tremendously. And the expectation of the consumer has moved up tremendously over the last 3 or 4 years.
And you also see developers that have delivered great product in the past have trouble maybe with labor, with costing. And this time around, they haven't delivered as good product, and vice versa, right? Like there's also the developers that the first one, probably like my first real estate deal, I was like, I can't even believe I pulled that one off back then. And now it's like, okay, we have a higher level of quality, right? So I think it's just going to be it's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
I had a question for you guys. So you guys were long ahead of Toronto on the Laneway suites. Now you're past that. That's in the past, right? But Toronto, a lot of people are building them. Like I have an alleyway where I park into the back of my house, and there's like tons of Laneway houses built. There was an article that came out recently by the Toronto Star, and the headline was, "This Toronto homeowner thought a Laneway suite would attract buyers. Instead, it's making his property harder to sell." So he spent $450,000 building this Laneway street. And I don't know how it works in your market, but in Toronto, it's like one deed. You're buying it, you're getting both, right? You're getting both when you buy the property. He thought building this, he spent this much money on it, would help his value go up in his property on top of what he invested into it. Now it's like his home, he expects to get $500,000 more than all the other homes without Laneway suites, and it's sitting there on the market. That's interesting, right? Because those ones being built, I would think, at least in my market, and maybe the way it was previously in your market, was you're building those if you're going to live in that house for a long time, and this is an investment vehicle for you, or you Airbnb'd it when that was allowed. Did you guys ever see that, where the Laneway suites actually stopped properties from selling? No? That's just a Toronto thing?
Right now, like the latest investor deal we did was what they call a coach home out here, right? So you have a house up top, 3 bedrooms, a 2-bedroom basement suite, and then a 1-bedroom Laneway home. But it's all one title. Right. Those are one of the hottest segments. They're still selling great. I don't know, though, in Vancouver, did they stratify any of those Laneway houses, Adil?
Yeah. So they have stratified them in Burnaby as well. The Laneway homes are all strata titled, so you can sell them separately.
Okay.
The challenge, so to Tom's point, is people got really excited about the concept of Laneway homes, especially in areas where it's not totally proven out, like in Burnaby, for example. So I've seen the last 3 sales of homes in Burnaby with Laneway homes have not recouped the cost of the Laneway.
Huh. Yeah.
Exactly what Tom's saying. So it cost you $400,000 to build it, but you're maybe only recouping $200,000 to $250,000 of that in your sale price. The other issue is parking. Steve, it's parking is obviously a concern for you. These Laneway homes on 33 footers, Steve, when you put in that Laneway home, you almost, if you do a 2-story Laneway home, you've got no parking, right? And you might have one open parking on the side, and the rest of the parking, guess where it's going to go? It's going to go on the street, right? And so the streets will get more congested. I also think that homeowners that want it for themselves, it makes sense. But from like an economic standpoint, right, or a developer or investor, they're not going to build those Laneway homes in Burnaby, especially going forward, because of the uncertainty around that premium. Also, in Vancouver, we're seeing success. Like I'm listing a Laneway home in Cedar Cottage, which is a nice East Vancouver corridor. And I expect that Laneway because people are accepting of the Laneway concept there. Our neighbor has a side-by-side duplex with a Laneway home in the back. And ironically enough, in that neighborhood, when we launched this 3-unit project, everyone was asking about the Laneway. And so we're going to get $1,200 a square foot for that Laneway, right? But I think it only works if it's stratified and you can sell it separately.
With this new zoning, if you get the right lot, so you're saying like if it's a 60 something, you can then split it and then double it up. Can you build 6 units on each and put 2 Laneway houses, or is it just the 6 units? And this takes away the Laneway now.
So the Laneway would qualify as 1 unit.
Okay, got it. Which wouldn't make sense to do on its own, right?
Wouldn't make sense on its own. Also, the city of Burnaby is qualifying your basement suite as a new unit as well.
Okay.
So that's a legalized, authorized basement suite. The other thing that we haven't talked about, we touched on fees, and Steve, you're hearing all about this too in the Valley, is to create every new unit, it's $80,000 in municipal fees, which is a cash cost. So you're doing 8 units or 6 units, that's $500,000 you got to be ready to pay when you pick up your building permit.
That's up front.
Yeah, up front. Exactly.
Yeah, so think about that, Tom. So
that's
you're going to
crazy.
do this, right? You're going to do this, and you buy a little old ranch, and then you want to tear it down and build it into 4 units. After your development fees and your application permit, all that stuff, you're into it for $300,000+ just for the paperwork.
Well, that's why it makes sense to do what Adil's saying. You partner with the developer up front so that you're not taking on all this risk on your own. Obviously, you're making less of the profit, but you're doing it that way. Or
we could ask the cities to maybe not worry about that because they're going to recoup the money through property taxes for perpetuity. Like this is the challenge, right? These development fees, they really got to get going. So Adil, I guess you're looking at this. These are going to be all basically stratified. There's nobody looking to build little mini apartment buildings and live in them themselves, because I think that would be awesome. My thought is like, hey, if I could have a 4-story walk-up apartment, let's say, and each floor is their own and I get to live on the top because I'm the king of the castle, like that would be kind of awesome to have under one title. Yeah. But that's probably not the way people are going, and they're going to be just basically mini stratified townhouse complexes.
So there is a really cool concept that we haven't seen come to market yet, but it's in discussions with one of our partners. Is a 4-story rancher style concept. So each level would be one level living. There's a huge downsizer market that still doesn't want to be in a condo. They don't want to be in a 30-story tower waiting 10 minutes for an elevator, and they like their independence. And this is a really cool concept. It's not proven out yet, but imagine going to a very boutique offering where you get into an elevator and the elevator opens up into your unit, and it's 16 or 1,800 square feet of open living space, and you've got outdoor space, but you've got only three additional neighbors, but you've got your own level. The entire level would be for one unit, 1,800 square foot unit. So we're testing it out. We have a property under that we're representing the seller, that the builder is looking at doing a rancher concept over 4 stories. So let's see if it happens and the success of it. But the downsizer community, I think, is being a bit neglected because these townhouse price points that we're creating with the multiplexes is mainly for move out buyers, young families. A lot of stairs.
Can I make a suggestion for the marketing name of what you just told us about? Call it the Karrasch.
No, this is the Karrasch. I've got a better idea. This is the one I want. Okay. I want to see you build this one. I want to see you build, and I'll give you the correct spelling if you want to actually market it that way.
It would hurt sales. Don't do it.
I want to see probably what would be 4 single car garages across the front. Yeah. Behind the single car garages, I would like to see a large, let's call it 2-bedroom unit. The next 2 floors above the garage would be a typical 3-story townhouse, side by side. And then the top floor that has access with the elevator would be all one large ranch style top floor large apartment. I think that would actually give you, so you've in that one area, you've got possibly an entry level, 2 family style, and then also probably that downsizer that wants to be all on one level. I think you've got really cool options. What I am a little bit disappointed with, from what I've seen anyway, and I'm no expert on it, is the province very much wants to kind of equalize the size of the units. Meaning they kind of want all of the units to be small and barely livable for a family like mine, as opposed to 1 or 2 larger units and then 1 or 2 entry-level units or that sort of thing. So that's a bit of a flaw that I see, but I understand also why they're doing it, because then you would probably have 5,000 square foot house on top with 3 1-bedroom or 3 studios, right? So is that
not just what happened with high-rise condos? That's what and then it's investor driven instead of end user driven, right? The smaller they get.
There's that, or you just end up what we already have in Surrey, which is 5,000 square foot house with 3 studio apartments in the basement, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know unless you're like next to a transit node, where those smaller units will be successful when it goes to market. Like if you're in the suburbs and you're in a 1 bedroom, studio style unit, I just don't necessarily see the market demand for that. You're not around any really walkable amenities or any urban amenities. I think there's certain corridors, like in Surrey, probably near Surrey Central. In Burnaby, you've got Lougheed, Brentwood, Metrotown, Commercial Broadway. If you're walking distance to any of those stations, I think there's a lot of there's a conversation there about building those smaller homes versus going for those people buying into the high rises. They could buy something smaller but walkable. But I think right now it's about risk mitigation as well. There's some uncertainty in the market. And building those bigger units, Steve, comes at a bigger price point and comes with more risk. Like we had a client that was doing 4 detached style single family homes, but then has gone back to the plans and is now doing 8 units because there's just too much risk in trying to sell those at 2 million each versus selling 8 at 1.3 million each. Right?
Yeah.
I want to wrap up today and take this conversation totally sideways, because I actually had a viewer of the show send me this article, and ChatGPT, the update recently is insane. I actually sent Steve a photo yesterday. I just put in a photo of him and I said, send me a photo of Steve Karrasch in Toronto drinking a sour beer, because that's his favorite type of beer, Adele, if you didn't know that. And
I didn't know that.
no, it's not actually, but and it was creepy how good the photo was. Like this most recent update on the paid ChatGPT is insane. Like it's getting to the point you can even do your own virtual staging. You don't have to pay a company anymore. Like
amazing.
This photo, stage it, change the color of the wall. You can talk to it now design wise. But where I'm going with this is there was this headline that came out. I'm sure you guys both saw it. First ever AI real estate agent generates $100 million in sales in Portugal. Did you guys see this headline? So
no.
So I had a viewer of the show actually send it to me. They're like, you guys should talk about this. And effectively what it was like an ISA, which we call in the industry is someone you have on your team that just calls everybody and tries to book appointments for your business, right? Like very similar in whatever the businesses are that people are listening from. But basically this virtual AI person that would call people or be the messaging on the website generated enough leads that turned into $100 million in sales, all done through AI.
Jesus.
Isn't that crazy?
The leads, though, not the
crazy.
actual transaction.
The real life person had to then take the opportunity and go service it, correct? And I didn't read through every line of this, and I don't know how long this took or how much money was invested into it. All those things are probably, you can debunk this story in different ways. But because Adil, me and Steve have been talking about it recently. When I was at Inman, the whole conference was just AI, like I'm sure everything is. And I was like, would my clients be pissed off if a robot version of me that sounded like me called them to check in and booked appointments? But this is the first story where they're actually saying in Portugal, like $100 million of actual sales that happened that originated from not a person generating opportunity. That's pretty crazy.
Pretty amazing. Yeah. Do you think that's where the industry is headed, guys?
Well, even in this scenario, Steve made a good point. Who actually did the transaction? Real people. They didn't say how long it took or how many showings they did or negotiations. So I think in every industry, it will be impacted in massive ways that we cannot even comprehend at this point in time.
Right.
So how much money was this?
$100 million in sales volume. So selling 100 homes for $1 million each is basically what they're saying.
That's crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, crazy.
We've done that on YouTube, so you're fine.
Like I'd be okay with like if someone sounded like me, had the same tonality. Maybe talking to people that weren't part of my immediate
agreed
sphere. There's no risk in that. I think there's only upside in that. But probably more apprehensive to try someone to come off as me with a client that I've worked with in the past. I
guess what it would be is you wouldn't make it you'd make it hey, this is Steve calling from the Storey team. And Steve is an AI person, but you don't have to, maybe they announce it, maybe they don't. Maybe say, hey, I'm Tom's AI, whatever, and I'm calling today about this. And I just want to ask you these, that's
probably the right move. Let them know you're AI, and then they're like, okay, I'm talking to an AI, and I'll talk to the right person later on.
That's probably early moving version of how this is implemented. But
Adil, I see this being more
commonplace.
Sorry, guys, I really got to cut this short. I have two different things to do. One, I'm going to lock in my own mortgage rate today, and two, I have to go present 4 multiple offers at the moment. So
you have
Adil,
4?
I have 4 offers on a property.
Show
why
off.
are we talking about this at the end of the call? Tell me more.
But can you let us know where the people can contact you if they want to read? Please don't give your cell phone number, but you got websites or Instagrams or something.
Yeah, absolutely. You can hit us up either on social media or on our website. It's www.dinani.ca. And my Instagram handle is just Adil Dinani. Happy to field any questions. Anyone from Toronto coming out this way. We're a great team ready to go.
Adil's a great guy. I very much vouch for him. So anyone listening that needs help in Vancouver, especially in this new space that we've talked about today. Steve, good luck with your multiple offers. I hope, it's funny. This could be 4 multiple offers where none of them are over asking, but we'll cover that on next week's show. Adil, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.
Thank
everyone
you guys
for watching and listening. I appreciate your time today. Have a great week and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Adil. I appreciate it.
Adil.